Medical emergencies abroad, when travel goes terribly wrong and there had been a need to have travel insurance in place. Hi, I'm Yvonne, your host of Wild Travels. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the dinner bell. That lets you know every time a new video is published and released by Wild Travels. And so let's go ahead and get started. As travel agent, constantly I am putting together itineraries, and in those itineraries I always wrap in the travel insurance. For me, most times clients fine with it, but I'm noticing more and more in the news, I'm seeing these some very tragic stories about individuals who've been traveling abroad and unfortunately did not have the required travel or the necessary travel insurance to cover an occurrence like a tragedy or a death. So today I just wanted to kind of go over that, and as I was doing it, I now realize I'm going to have to do it in two parts. I thought I could squeeze it all in one video, but I think it may be a little bit too long and a little bit overkill. I don't want to overkill it for you, but I do want to stress the importance. I'm going to share a quick story today, and just out of courtesy for the family, I'm going to not use names and locations of the country, but this is a recent story that really just happened probably less than a week ago. Her mom and her daughter were on vacation in the Dominican Republic. During the night, mom gets a knock on the door that her daughter had a fall. She'd fallen from 3 stories there. And so they rushed the daughter, who is 26 of age, to the hospital there, and she was placed on life support. Later that day, unfortunately, the young lady passed away. She leaves behind not only her mom and family, but she had 2 young children, ages 8 and 10. So, unfortunately, the young woman did not purchase travel insurance in the event of a medical emergency or a death. So she has incurred during her stay at the hospital a $6,000 medical bill. The funeral home that has her body is now wanting $5,100 just to release her body. That won't even be to get her home, which that can be anywhere from $50,000 to whatever, depending on where she is. $50,000 to $100,000. I've seen those bills that high. So just a tragic situation. And so now she has to also deal with the laws, the repatriation of getting her daughter's body back into the country if she decides not to have the funeral there, depending on, and then now dealing with all of these costs and things of that nature. So I just wanted you to be aware of the importance of it. And so I'm going to go over some quick things with you. There's about 7 of them. So should you travel, number one, wrap that into your travel expenses. It can run anywhere from $200 or less, depending on how many people are going, how many people in the family need to be covered. But my God, it's insurance is, it's not something that you can call your friends over. It's like a car or a house and, have drinks and say, hey, look what I bought. But it does protect your assets. And that's the main purpose of insurance. So with that said, I'm going to get off my little horse here. But with that said, or my little soapbox, but with that said, choose someone. If you're traveling, just choose someone that you trust that to be contacted if needed. So make sure you have that information, and make sure that information is on your passport. Mainly, that's where it needs to be. And so make sure that information is updated. Notify the deceased, and so that person will need to notify the deceased person's travel insurance company. So that means, and I always advise, take a copy of the travel insurance documents with you, but always leave a copy of those documents at home with this individual that is assigned or that is notated on your passport. Find a funeral home in the region where you are that is familiar with international funeral arrangements, because they are going to be able to walk you through that process. And so that's really important, because this is, I can't even imagine, this is just such an awful time and stress and trauma on the family. Now, understand that each country's laws are different. So wherever this emergency, medical emergency or tragedy may happen, you are subject to the laws in that country. So you may want to understand what those laws are. Also, maybe check where the nearest hospitals are. Now, as we all know, all hospitals are not the same. So you may want to check into that. The family representative will also need to obtain several copies of, should you need a death certificate, several copies of a death certificate. If it is not in the language of your country, then it will need to be translated into into your country's language. So keep that in mind as well. And it needs to be translated. You know, you can't have a cousin do it. It needs to be translated by a certified translation service. And you may need more documents depending on the circumstances surrounding the death as to whether or not the human remains or the ashes will be sent back to your country. So again, this is just such a devastating thing to have happen, but travel insurance, and I don't want to go get into it yet, but in part 2, you will see how travel insurance would have really helped this family out, would have really taken care of taken a lot of the stress and strain and trauma off of the family. Thank you guys for tuning in. I always appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful day. Travel safe and be blessed, and we'll see you next time here on Wild Travels. Bye-bye now.